Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Well, good evening. This wonderful Sunday evening again, back with you here on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. This is Will Coley, broadcasting live again from our secret Liberty bunker here in the beautiful Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, along with my amazing and illustrious co-host, Davi Barker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm again broadcasting from international waters, but unlike last week, I can say that I am topside to watch the sunset tonight, and that's all I can tell you. So, how's it going, Will?
Man, it's good. I'm good. We're actually just waiting for our prospective guests tonight to queue up. We originally had some guys that were supposed to come on from the Libertarian Party of Oklahoma, along with Adam Soltani of Care, Oklahoma. There is an event going on, I believe it's next week, where the idea is the Muslim community of Oklahoma. I hate the way that they put this. We are proud, tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, and therefore they, want access to the representatives that rule over them. So, just like any other American, they do have the right to petition those leaders if they so choose to do so. And
well, that sounds like a legal opinion. Are these legal professionals that they can say without a doubt that they're law-abiding?
I don't know.
Because I would not say that. I would not say that about myself anywhere that I might be at risk of perjuring myself, because I have no idea what the laws are and whether or not I abide by them.
Well, I don't know. I always heard if you walk through the hood, if you do something wrong, an old man will hop out of the bushes and go, "Don't do that! Don't do that! I'll get you 5 to 10."
I've never experienced that particular phenomenon.
It's a Chappelle joke. It's a joke that Dave Chappelle tells. So
cool.
So yeah, we were supposed to have them on. Basically, the Libertarian Party makes an effort last year, and then is also doing so this year in Oklahoma to form a barrier of protection for these people who are attempting to exercise this right to access their masters from those who wish to prevent them from having access to do so. There are protesters that what they do is they travel around from state to state and go and attempt to, you can find video of one lady in particular who's well known, snatching a microphone and shouting at a group of elementary school age children who were singing the national anthem.
The hymns of the Republic.
Yeah, the hymns are for the Republic. It's the state's version of Amazing Grace. But yeah, the Libertarian Party goes, and what they do is they stand, they sing songs. Wow, this sounds so cliched. But they also hand out coffee and donuts and stuff to the people who are there in opposition to try to create a more positive atmosphere than some of the things that are happening there. And the media, again, just like they did last year, is not mentioning the fact that they even exist. Stop Hate OKC was actually like the brainchild of libertarians in the Oklahoma City area, but their effort has been relegated to, quote, an interfaith group. So no one in particular gets any type of acknowledgement. They just call it an interfaith group, when I wouldn't actually consider a political party to be a faith group of any kind. So I would at least be like some political parties and interfaith groups, but the media is not acknowledging.
They're a sect of the civic religion. That's what they are.
Okay, I'll acquiesce to that. So anyway, we wanted to have them on and give them the opportunity, to get access to a national audience, and maybe if you independent media folks that perhaps listen to the show might do a story about their efforts and the fact that it's been ignored twice now by local and mainstream media. And then that kind of fell through. There were, parent type thing issues, and, I have to deal with my children type thing. So that fell through. And the next idea was Hassan Shibli. Hassan Shibli actually thought that we were going to have him scheduled for tonight. I spoke to his representative, and I never really got a confirmation either way. So we didn't schedule him for tonight, but he was ready for tonight. So I was like, well, awesome, because our other guy canceled, so come right on the show. And, well, as you can see, he's still not here yet. So, but we wanted to...
Well, he may show up, but why don't you tell everyone who he is?
Well, Hassan Shibli is he's an attorney. He works as director of CARE Florida, which is actually a separate entity from the normal Council of American-Islamic Relations that you see on TV most of the time. I didn't realize that.
Really? Separate in what sense?
They're a separate entity. They use the same name and they have the same like trademarked logos and stuff, but CARE is its own 501c3, separate from the original.
Oh well,
CARE Florida.
okay, and if that's the distinction, all of the states are separate 501c3s. Every state chapter of CARE is a separate 501c3 than the national, as far as I know.
My understanding from what I've spoken to other people who work with CARE Florida is that CARE Florida, like, is overseer of the different chapters in Florida, and that they're literally completely separate from the national chapter. The national chapter doesn't really have any control over them or the things that they do, or any real input over in their organization or the things that they do. So I didn't actually realize that until previously. I mean, until just now when I spoke to them and found that out. But he was on. There's a case. It's a very interesting case. It was something I definitely thought the listeners would be interested in. The Boston bombing. Everybody remembers when that happened.
I remember.
All right. So you had this guy who was a friend, someone who knew the Zernev brothers, but he didn't live in Boston. He actually lived in Florida, I think. Yeah, he lived in Florida because that's where the legal case is. He lived in Florida, and he actually had a planned travel, previously planned travel, previous to the bombings. He had travel he had planned, and it was time for his flight to go. And he actually canceled his flight because the feds had come to him and asked him to do an interview with him. They wanted to interview him about about his association with the Zernev brothers and who were alleged to have carried out the Boston bombing. And
to be clear, he was a person of interest, not a suspect.
Yeah, he wasn't a suspect. He was someone that they were interviewing. He canceled his flight. They didn't cancel his flight. He personally canceled his flight in order to, cooperate, so to speak. And then went for this interview and ended up dead with a bullet in his head in his own house. There were conflicting
with
stories.
Some pretty bizarre, extenuating circumstances on the part of law enforcement in this case too.
Yeah, extremely odd circumstances. First, there were differing opinions as to whether or not he had a knife, and then differing opinions as to whether or not he had a gun. Neither
of these items were produced.
Yeah, neither of these items have ever been produced as evidence. Then there was an interviewer, I believe, that asked to have time alone with him without other interviewers, which is a violation of protocol. And
that's the weirdest thing. So you got to figure, like, there's a whole crew of police officers or law enforcement, FBI, that roll up on this guy's house as a group. And the reason they go as a group is so that there's overwhelming force, and if there's ever an altercation, they can all pull their guns at the same time, and they're all backing each other up, right?
Well, that and the whole cover your backside aspect too. It's
right.
They're quote unquote witnesses.
But then the officer or the agent who is going to interrogate this boy insists on doing it in another room without witnesses, without the rest of law enforcement seeing what he's doing. And then the murder takes place while he's alone in the room with the boy. And so there is no corroborating witness account. There is only the person who killed him.
Yeah, exactly. And what Hassan is doing is Hassan is actually suing the FBI. And since he's the one who's taking on this case, suing the FBI over this, he is the one that we're trying to get on the air tonight. And so he can tell us all about the case when we come back on The Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. And we're back. So yeah, we're waiting right now for attorney Hassan Shibli to join us on the Call to Freedom tonight. We've been talking.
I want to point out just on you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, what Davi was probably just about to get straight into. We've been talking about the case of Ibrahim Togodeshev. He was a friend of, I believe, Tamerlane Zernev, who is alleged to have been one of the plotters or bombers involved in the Boston Marathon bombing. And he turned up dead at the hands of the FBI in some very odd ways.
After completely cooperating with them.
Yeah.
And what I want to point out is how colossally unwise that is, and how that is against the advice of any competent attorney. Like if he was going to have this meeting with the FBI for them to ask him questions, and he was going to cooperate as he intended to, he should have had an attorney present. And if he'd had an attorney present, he would probably be alive, or at the very least, there would be a witness to his murder. So,
or a dead attorney who got accidentally hit in the crossfire. That's
also a possibility, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, come on now. This is the government we're talking about. These aren't school children. And what I think is really interesting is that the feds didn't cancel his flight. He did that himself. Like, they didn't have any reason. So if he was this awful guy, he would have fled the country. Well, he had this opportunity to leave. Yeah, the feds didn't cancel his flight. He was free to continue with whatever he was doing. They wanted to interview him, but didn't like they had anything they could prevent his travel. And he stopped his flight himself in order to cooperate with the feds, because that's what he had been told that you're supposed to do. If you're innocent and you didn't do anything wrong, then you cooperate and then everything will be okay. And instead, he ended up with a bullet in his head. So
who gives this advice? I don't know anyone who gives this advice. Like, the only people I can think of in the entirety of the American spectrum that the mom should cooperate with the FBI without an attorney present is Republican candidates. That's all I can think of. Like, they're the only people I know who hark on Muslims for demanding a right that every other American should rightfully demand.
No, my mom, not the one that but like my adopted mother, the one that lives in Florida, the one that's like in her 60s. My uncle, their outlook on life, and they're not the only people that I know that feel this way, and they surround themselves with other people who feel this way, is that whole idea of if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to worry about. And no matter how much evidence you show them to the contrary, they grew up in a generation in that whole like, my mom was born in 1949. So she grew up, she was a child of the Cold War. She was hiding under her desk in kindergarten for like nuclear attack drills and all that. Like, she was raised to believe that the might of the government is there to protect you, and that's what it will do. And like, she has that same. She likes Ted Trump, and Ted Trump. Well, yeah, Ted Trump. That does make sense. She likes Ted Cruz, and she likes Donald Trump. Those are her kind of candidates. She's a Republican arm puller. And she says she'll never vote third candidate again because she supported Ross Perot, and it's her. Like, she sees it as her fault personally that Bill Clinton won the election in 1992.
Wait, why personally?
Because she voted for Ross Perot, and it's her fault. She did it. If she had stayed with the Republican Party and other Republicans had done so, then we wouldn't have had 8 years of Clinton. Because it's the Republican arm pullers. I have those people in my family. I'm not allowed to talk about politics at all. Like, my mom, if we have I have an uncle that's like right on the borderline. Like, I know if I could just get him just a few days with him without my mom stopping us from talking to each other, he wouldn't be a Republican anymore. Like
yeah, my family's kind of like that too. Like my mom, my stepdad and I always sort of argue, and he doesn't really have a position. He doesn't have a sect. He believes in the civic religion, but he's an independent.
Unitarian.
He's a Unitarian. And
Universalist. That's it. Unitarian Universalist.
Yeah. We don't have to disagree. All government is good, guys.
Yeah.
But my mom listens to me when we argue, and I always feel like if I got her like alone and we were having a discussion instead of an argument, that she would come right along with me. And she's even said that like the sort of like basebook libertarian position of like socially liberal, financially conservative, like she says that she identifies that way. So, but politics in the family is always a fight.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I try to avoid it.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's one of those things. It's like, all right, if you and your uncle talk politics at all at the table, then you're never invited back for holidays again. Like my mom has literally sat me down. My Uncle Mike came and we were having a discussion, and we literally sat and had like a 15-minute talk about Bastiat at the table. He had went and read Bastiat at my encouragement, and we sat and had a discussion about Bastiat at the table. And my mom came, like I went into the kitchen to get a cup of coffee, and my mom followed me in there, and she cornered me next to the coffee pot, and she was like, if you don't stop, and if you ever talk about politics with any of your family here ever again, you're not invited over for any holidays ever. So I was like, okay, yes, Mom. Yes, ma'am. So yeah, it's just not allowed.
Freedom of speech is a myth.
Well, I mean, if I'm standing, well, I don't know, yeah.
Does this extend to other relatives? Are they not allowed to talk about politics?
No, just me. Because I'm a libertarian. Yeah, I'm a libertarian, and if I say something that contradicts what one of the other uncles says or believes, and I make him look bad based on facts, then that will make her look bad because he's upset that I made him look bad. So it's like dealing with Arabs. It really is, or Indians.
Well, you're a heretical sect. That's why.
Yeah. Well, no, if I was I believe if I was a Democrat, it would be worse. I mean, she accuses me of being a Democrat all the time simply because I don't like the Republican Party. She's like, oh, well, Obama this and Obama that. It's like, I don't like him any more than you do.
Yeah, I have discovered that the easiest way to get out of a political argument is to just make fun of whichever one the other person doesn't like. So, like, I can sit around and make fun of Democrats all day, and I can sit around and make fun of Republicans all day. And as long as I do that to the right audience, I never have a disagreement with anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was the idea. The back to what we were talking about originally. We're hoping to have Hassan Shibli on coming back. We're just waiting for Muaz Hassan to get back with us, and we'll get into that when we come back on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. Welcome back to the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. This is Will Coley again with my amazing co-host, Davi Barker. And,
how's it going?
We've been sitting here chatting about the Ibrahim Togadejev case. Got a little sidetracked about politics at the dinner table. But basically, again, this kid... He complied in every way possible, canceled his own flight, went and interviewed with the police, with the FBI rather, and ended up dead. Now, there's actually a story in the Boston Globe where the family is seeking $30 million from the FBI over this death. And again, we've been waiting tonight. We were... Hopefully, he is out of country right now, so he may be having issues with internet connections where he's at. But I did get assurances at 9:30 tonight that he would be joining us sometime this evening to discuss this case. But he is the attorney for the family who has been involved in investigating this case and in taking this case to the government, attempting to sue the FBI. I love it. I love this. I just love saying those words. He's suing the FBI. Now, basically, Todashev was 27 years old. He is a friend of the late suspected marathon bomber Tamerlan Zernev.
Do we have any sense of what kind of friendship that was, or is that just sort of an allegation?
No, we have no. I've not seen any stories that go into any detail about what was going on. Now, according to the reports here, says the Department of Justice, which oversees the FBI, and a Florida prosecutor last year cleared agent Aaron McFarland of any wrongdoing. In separate reports, they said Todashev attacked McFarland and a Massachusetts state trooper after Todashev allegedly confessed to helping Zernev kill 3 men in Waltham in 2011. Now,
that's the other thing. There's this alleged confession, which is taken only by the man who killed him and not written down anywhere. It's not recorded anywhere. Yeah. It's just like the guy who shot him said, "Oh yeah, he confessed."
To these other murders that we've been trying to solve for 4 years and haven't been able to. It seems almost like you've got this terrible case, by the way. I'm not usually into the whole conspiracy theory stuff, but the Boston bombing case is like just riddled with so much stuff. Like you've got one of the suspects in handcuffs naked in the middle of the street. And then an hour later, they're like, no, that you didn't see that. That guy's dead. That guy, you didn't see that. No. That suspect is dead. You didn't see that. You didn't see us put him in the back of a cop car. That was another random individual that was wandering around the streets naked during a lockdown at 12 o'clock at night. It wasn't the suspect, even though it looked exactly like him. No. That wasn't him. You didn't see that. So that right there in itself is like, okay, what the hell's going on here? I mean, seriously. What the hell?
It's sort of worth pointing out how common this is. I don't remember quite the outcome of the investigation with the Boston bombing, but because there's actually an explosion, and there usually isn't when it's a patsy. But like a lot of the time, these things are FBI patsies.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing that we were going to have us on to discuss, because he also works with other cases as well, and there's become, even though Obama was supposed to be this great new thing for the Muslims, if you ask the Muslim voters, like, oh, Obama, it'd be so much better than Bush. Yeah, well, guess what? I'm looking at the Bush administration, and I'm seeing, no, they just straight up kidnapped people. They didn't try to beat around the bush and make it seem like they were doing anything other than just straight up kidnapping people. Whereas the Obama administration has created, this has been a policy since he got elected, to send spies into the Muslim community, without warrants, to send people in to spy in these communities, and to find troubled youths, which is the best way to put it, to find troubled youths, the same kind of people that would normally...
Or crazy people.
Well, usually the same kind of people that would be preyed upon by gangs in the 90s. I really do compare it to modern extremism, to that kind of thing, because the messaging a lot of times is very similar for modern extremist groups, as well as like the gang epidemic of the bloody 90s. And they look for these same types of youths that were preyed upon during the gang epidemics of the 90s, people who feel isolated or detached from their communities and from their families, and then get them, convince them that there's this great idea that we're going to pull off this bombing, we're going to pull off this attack, and then even if they attempt to change their mind, like the Oregon case, they have proof that this kid tried to leave Oregon. He was like, you know what? I don't want to be involved in this. I want to go work on a fishing boat. Like, he wanted to go to Alaska and work on a fishing boat for a year and clear his head, have like a self-discovery. And he got the job, and then they blocked his ability to travel.
They called the employer and lost him the job is what they did.
Yeah, they kept him from being able to leave so that he could continue to be their patsy in this case. So that was another.
And then also, like, hopefully the Muslim community doesn't turn these FBI agents into the FBI, because they've been known to do that. Where, like, the FBI guy is wandering around the Muslim community looking for an extremist, and the other Muslims are like, "It's kind of an extremist. Let's turn him in." Yeah,
that's happened a couple of times. But then you also have communities that are really, really they really like to celebrate the fact that they are good little slaves. You know, like, oh, well, we've set up this and we do this with the sheriff's department, and, you know, we always comply with everything, and we never, you know, and it's like they celebrate in the fact that they are good master. I mean, it's really no different, you know, than the slaves in the 16, 17, and 1800s who would criticize other slaves for running away, who took pride in the fact that they were particularly compliant and obedient to their masters. I don't see it as
well. This is no accident. This is known in psychology that, like, if you apply a collective punishment on a people, those people will begin to police themselves, so that the one who is being disobedient or whatever, who's not going along to get along, he becomes the enemy of his own peers because they're trying to avoid the collective punishment.
Yeah. Well, this is going to start some controversy. That's why, you know, I've always found collective punishment works really well with kids, because it's true. I have my oldest daughter. She's 16 now. We had a cousin of hers that's not directly related to my family that used to come and stay with her when she would come visit me on the weekends. And he was a particularly unruly child, to say the least. And I tried everything I could think of, and finally I came up with this idea that he got in trouble, and I said, okay, well, you guys get to spend all day tomorrow going around the neighborhood with coffee cans and picking up cigarette butts. And he says, well, but KK didn't do anything. That's what my daughter's name's Caitlin. They call her KK as a nickname. So, well, KK didn't do anything. I said, yeah, I know KK didn't do anything, but you did, and she's older than you, and she should have tried to keep you from doing what you weren't supposed to. So, because of that, she will also be punished as well. And I sent them outside with coffee cans, and I made them walk around and pick up cigarette butts and pieces of trash until the cans were full. And it was surprisingly effective. He felt so much shame at the fact that she had to be punished for his actions, that she was basically in trouble, and it was his fault, that I never ever had him. He literally, from that point forward, was the perfect child. So more of my horrible parenting advice and Davi's philosophical understanding of everything when we come back on The Call to Freedom on LRN.FM.
And one of the things in the
And we're back. It's a Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. We've been discussing the case of Ibrahim Tudashev, a young man who, it looks, the evidence looks like he was basically just straight up murdered by the FBI in his own house after he did everything that he could to cooperate. And, in the midst of that, we've kind of gone off on a few rabbit trails and talked about a few other things and, some peaceful parenting and other things. And, and we're back again to the original topic of the first hour, which is this Tudashev case. Now, I've been looking into the life of this, the career, rather, of this Officer McFarland, who committed this murder. And now, according to this is from the Boston Globe, says last year McFarland settled 2 police brutality lawsuits, faced 4 internal affairs investigations during 4 years as an Oakland officer. In 2003, he testified in a police corruption trial, but invoked his Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination after a prosecutor implied that he had falsified a police report. After being granted immunity, McFarland denied any wrongdoing. The next year, McFarland retired on a disability pension, which he continued to collect after the FBI hired him in 2008. The total payout to this date has reached $520,761. California officials said Monday disability pensions are tax-free. The city of Oakland launched an investigation into McFarland's pension after the Globe article, but on Monday, spokeswoman for the FBI said that the FBI has refused to release information that the city needs to decide whether or not to revoke it. Quote, the idea of a member of law enforcement breaching the community's trust by collecting a disability pension without merit is an affront to the honorable men and women who are true law enforcement professionals, as well as a drain on the limited public resources, said Karen Boyd, spokesman.
Wait, can you read that again?
Okay, again. Quote.
What was the dishonor? I'm always curious about honor.
Okay. All right. It says the idea of a member of law enforcement breaching the community's trust by collecting a disability pension without merit is an affront to the honorable men and women who are true law enforcement professionals, as well as a drain on limited public resources, said Karen Boyd, a spokeswoman.
That's so stupid. That is so absurd. Like, imagine if you protested a speeding ticket and you walked up to the judge and you said the idea that a driver would speed beyond the speed limit is an affront to the honor of drivers everywhere. Yeah, that's so dumb. It's a specific person being accused of a specific thing, but it's an affront to all of our men and women in law enforcement to even suggest that one of us.
Well, no, not to suggest that they did it. She's saying she's with the city and they're trying to revoke his pension because they believe that he is basically defrauding the state, and the FBI won't release the information necessary so that they can find out, and then they can go ahead with either revoking that pension or prosecuting him for fraud. I get it. So basically, he retired from the Oakland Police Department with disability after a scandal-ridden career of police brutality and corruption charges, and then got a job working for the FBI after this while on disability. And now, since he's a member of the feds are circling the wagons and invoking the thin blue line to prevent the state from being able to basically go after this guy for fraud if necessary. So now it just shows you, like, even there's, when it comes to the government, there is no honor among thieves, because the feds are now protecting this guy from the state government. See, if he worked for the state government, then the state government would be protecting him from the public. So it's like he's graduated to like an extra layer of insulation from accountability.
Right.
But this is the background of the guy who is the only witness to the murder of Ibrahim Tadeshev. He's the only
the primary suspect as well.
He is he's the primary suspect as well. Yeah, it's just, oh my Lord. Now, a lot's riding on what happened in Waltham and what happened to Ibrahim Todeshev. We hope that this lawsuit will shed light on a lot of unanswered questions. And this was actually said by the attorney for Tamerlan Zernev. She's wanting to find out what's going on with this case for assistance in her own case.
Right.
Now, it says here that that the eldest of the Zernev brothers was killed in a shootout, but that's not what happened. The reports were that he was ran over by his brother. So
Well, it can't be both.
Even in this story, it's they can't get their facts or their story straight about what happened. This is according to government's accounts. After the other people left the room, Todashev allegedly flung a coffee table at McFarland's head, opening a gash that required 9 staples to close, then lunged at Sinelli with a metal broomstick. And McFarland allegedly ordered Todashev to stop, and when he did not, the agent shot him 7 times.
Must have been necessary.
Yeah,
Right? Must have been afraid for his life. And
a broomstick versus 2 armed federal agents. Or actually an armed federal agent and an armed Massachusetts state trooper. And a Massachusetts state trooper, like, there are like physical requirements in order to be a Massachusetts state trooper. You have to be like 5'10" at least and weigh at least so many pounds. Like, you have to be like a massive human being to be allowed to be a Massachusetts state trooper. And they were afraid of a man with a broomstick to the point that they needed to shoot him 7 times. Let me say that one more time. 7 times. They shot this man.
So Will, I hear these stories and I think 7 gunshots, like, I've fired a gun. That's not unmeditated, but like, I always think of it like I have this picture in my mind of police officers because of television. And so when I hear 7 shots fired, I imagine that they're these deliberate shots like cops in TV, right? But is it possible that they're just cowards, that they really are terrified of every bug that squeaks and that they unload on anything that moves? Like, because I could see in a fit of terror shooting 7 shots really quickly in a panic.
Lived next door to a Florida State Trooper when I was a senior in high school. And she was in the process of actually going through her training and getting her car and all of that sort of thing. And one of the things that she said that they taught her in school was basically that you don't ever shoot a suspect to wound a suspect. The rule is if you fire your firearm, and this was actually a rule that my own... my stepfather, his dad was in the Army, and he also worked as a private, basically like a sniper for the local police department. And he also taught, like, he told me when I was 7 years old, the first time I ever held a handgun and fired a handgun, I was around 7 years old, and I was told when he handed it to me that you never point that at anyone. If you do, never point it without the absolute intent that you will shoot, and never pull the trigger unless you intend to kill. And that was how I was introduced to a handgun, was that you never point this at another human being and pull the trigger unless you specifically are doing so to take that person's life. And that's what she was taught by her supervisors, learning to become a Florida Highway Patrol or Florida State Trooper, is that if you fire your sidearm, you fire to kill the suspect. And
if you draw your firearm,
if you draw your firearm, then your purpose is now to kill that suspect if you pull the trigger.
So I say this a lot. I'm not running, but if elected, what I would do is every department, every police department within my influence would have to adopt this rule. And that is, before an officer is allowed to shoot a human being, they have to shoot once in the ground. And the reason for that is that they will immediately learn the awesome power of silencing the whole bickering argument when a gunshot goes off. And if they can just discharge it safely into the ground, it will eliminate 90% of altercations.
We can only hope. Now, coming back in the second hour, we got lots more coming up. We'll be talking about the MPAC has challenged Donald Trump to a public debate. And maybe we can get lucky enough to host that right here on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. And we're back. The Call to Freedom lrn.fm. So it's me, Will, and then my amazing companion here, Davi. And, we've just been hanging out here. We had a guest for the first hour that unfortunately, I'm guessing
we had a guest bail. So we're trying something a little unusual. If you happen to be both a listener to this show and a friend of mine on Facebook, you can get the Google Hangout link at the top of my feed right this second.
Yeah, me too.
And come on the show.
Yeah,
this might be a terrible idea, but actually, you could prove us wrong.
They used to do it on Corey Moore.
Idea. Come on and tell us about it.
Well, they used to do it on Corey Moore's show. I remember going on like their Friday night hangouts on the Corey Moore show and just like showing up and getting on the air and being like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And they used to do it in the same format. They'd bring it on Google Hangouts. But that was back when Google Hangouts was cooler and there was like a chat bar on the side and like you could come in and like I could mute you when you came into the call and then you could like tell me your name in the sidebar and stuff. But I can't if the Google Hangout that I have does that, I don't know how to access that because I'm basically computer illiterate. So there you go. There's something. If you're a listener to the show and you want access to come on and teach me how to use Google Hangouts more effectively so that we can do this a little better, you can check the top of my Facebook page as well as the top of Davi's Facebook page for the link to come on the show. If you do come on, we do ask that you mute your microphone, turn off your video feed before you come on. That helps out with our broadcast to the station servers. We've been talking about this case. I guess we've spent about an hour beating this case up. So I wanted to move on to.
Well, I want to share just something. It's tangential, but it's related, and this is. This is kind of insider info on like a meta story going on in Survivor Max. For those that don't know, I'm the author of Survivor Max. It's this set of novels about a kid and the zombie apocalypse. But in the second book, it takes place in a refugee center. And this is not mentioned anywhere in the book. But if you happen to be listening to the show or if you happen to notice it on your own, all of the names mentioned in the memorial in the school or in the refugee center are the names of victims of police violence. And all of the police who are named as people guarding the refugee center are the names of police who have killed them. And so if you read the story carefully, you actually get to see those victims come back as zombies and kill their murderers.
That is epic. I like that. I really like that. That actually brings me to there's a lot of people that aren't particular fans of Chris Cantwell. I don't really care either way. I try really hard not to get involved in all these like pissing contests.
Oh yeah, me too.
The libertarian community. My willy is bigger than yours kind of stuff. I just don't have time for that nonsense. And but he did this it's called Dead Cops. That was just the name of the Facebook group. And when he made me an admin of it, and what would happen is I would get these notifications at the bottom of my screen, and anytime someone liked the Facebook page, and it would say like, David Smith likes Dead Cops. Jane Austen likes Dead Cops, and the picture is actually a picture of a zombie police, like a really poorly drawn. Like Rob Zombie style artwork, zombie police officer.
Now, is he that clever, or is this a coincidence that happened? Like, did he name it that for this reason? Because that's pretty cool.
I know. I even posted about it on Facebook. I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Every single time somebody likes this new Facebook page that I'm an admin of, it pops up in the bottom of my screen, so-and-so likes Dead Cops. And we should really be quiet from here on because, you never know when the feds will show up at your front door.
No, you got to double down, Will. What you got to do is get a screenshot of this thing that pops up and then send it to me. And I will go to Donald Trump's Facebook page and I will Photoshop the crap out of it so that it looks like Donald Trump likes Dead Cops.
Well, see, and
then we spread that around like a meme. Like we took a screenshot and here it is. Donald Trump likes Dead Cops.
We unfortunately Facebook shut that group down about 3 months after it got started. It just when you have something with a particularly I don't want to say
interesting.
Well, I don't want to say offensive because I'm not a
trigger warning.
Yeah, trigger worthy.
Civic religion. This might be offensive.
Yeah, exactly. When you use loaded language in that manner, you're gonna get the attention of people, and that that's Chris's purpose always.
Bailiwick
is to get people's attention. That's the reason why, even though, a lot of people don't like him, until the Pinochet thing, truthfully, I had a lot of respect for Chris, because even though other people didn't like his tactics, I understood the whole Andrew Dice Clay portion of it, of like, look, the idea is to get people's attention, and some people you literally have to smack them over the head with a brick to get their attention. So my calm rhetoric, your calm rhetoric, is never going to shock or offend these people to the point that they'll think. Whereas Chris is shocking and offensive enough in his spiel, his shtick that he does, that he is able to shock people awake that others of us couldn't reach because we're too
that's probably true.
Moderate.
That, I mean, like, shock or confusion is definitely something that shakes a person out of established dogmas. My opinion, like, I've been roped into a lot of conflicts with Chris Cantwell, and I've even like photoshopped him in some pretty embarrassing poses. But my honest to goodness opinion of him, this is a tradition in New Hampshire that you don't form an opinion of a political candidate until you've met them. And New Hampshire has that privilege because it's first in the union in a presidential election, right? And so if you ask someone in New Hampshire about Donald Trump, they'll say, I don't know, I haven't met the man. And I happen to know that Chris Cantwell has run for office before, and he probably will again. And I've never met the man, so that's my opinion of him.
I like that. My opinion was extremely positive.
Because everything could be fake. Years. Everything I know about him could be fake. It could all be a big Andy Kaufman routine for all I know. Hey, Chris Cantwell might not even exist, or maybe he's a robot. I have no way of knowing.
Well, when I saw him, when I first was introduced to him and like his whole thing, and like it was right before the great Cantwell Bueller feud, like the 2013 Hatfields and McCoys.
That's racist thing.
Yeah, that's racist thing. And and I was looking at him and watching and listening to like the complaints that Bueller had, and my brain, like, this light just came on, and I was like, he's Andrew Dice Clay. I mean, that's what he is. Like, and the Dice Man is not who Andrew, whatever his real name is. That's not who that guy is. But the Dice Man exists.
This plays into something we were talking about off the air. We were talking about the backfire effect off the air, and that is essentially this psychological discovery that people are not persuaded by facts. That when you present a person with cold, hard, objective facts that oppose their opinions, what they actually do is they concoct a cloud of arguments in their head against what you've said. And since that cloud outnumbers what you've said, they walk away more persuaded of their position. That's what happens in people's heads. So how do we actually shape or change or persuade someone's position if logic is literally off the table? And offense might be a way, confusion might be a way.
Yeah,
shock, awe, humor. Like, this is a really interesting field to me, because like libertarians are so like Aspergery that they're obsessed with, well, I've made a more logical argument, so clearly you should be agreeing with me. And it's like, that's not how humans work, apparently.
But that's the way it works in Islamic academia too, though. Like,
same thing. Yes. Yeah, Islamic academia is also very Aspergery. One of these other things where libertarian orthodoxy and Islamic orthodoxy overlap quite a bit.
Yeah. It's like when I get into arguments with people about like issues like the age of Aisha, it's like, okay, well, you've got one hadith from one book, and I have 9 from 3, including 4 that come from the book that you are citing. So I have more evidence. My argument wins. Take a seat, and we'll get into more of stuff like that when we come back on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. All right, we're back on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. We're still in the top half of the second hour of the show. And so Davi was just talking about this Dartmouth study that basically states that, well, let me give you the jargon. The process by which people counter-argue preference incongruent information and bolster their pre-existing views. If people counter-argue unwelcome information vigorously enough, they may end up with more attitudinally congruent information in mind than before the debate, which in turn leads them to report opinions that are more extreme than they otherwise would have had. So basically that even if you bring facts and reason to an argument, what you may end up actually doing, or most likely will end up doing, is creating a situation where the person who you are attempting to bring this reason and logic to actually becoming more extreme in their original position.
I mean, it's a simple that way you resist percent. Right. It's the return of the repressed. I mean, it's a phenomenon in nature, that which imposed order leads to increased disorder. Right. And so if you push against the person's beliefs and you're not a credible source of information for them, they're going to just push back. And so they're going to entrench and they're going to double down.
So whether you personally are a credible source of information generally, it doesn't matter. If you're a credentialed expert in a specific field, you've spent 20 years of your life studying. None of that matters. I have an opinion.
What I mean is reliable to them and their existing opinions. Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah. Like they'll listen to a David Barton, but they won't listen to John McDeasy, who teaches, history at St. John's Loyola and at Harvard University. They won't listen to him, but they will listen to David Barton on history. The one has a doctorate in history and the other one doesn't.
So most people would entrench in their positions on most subjects, and most people would gravitate towards candidates that merely parrot their own opinions. But something happened in the Trump campaign, and that is that Trump, he called it New York values or whatever, but he's fundamentally pro-choice, not pro-life, which is not typical for Republicans and conservatives. So he's lured in all of these conservatives and Republicans who have been supporting him because he said build a wall and kill the Muslims. And now they've got this problem of they've devoted all this money and wardrobe and rally and they've committed to this candidate. And so there is suddenly in the mind of some conservatives, and I've witnessed this, and I've heard this on AM radio, a willingness to begin to question their position on pro-life and pro-choice. Because it came from somebody that they consider reliable, and that's Donald Trump.
And socialized medicine.
What's that?
And socialized medicine. Trump has been a supporter.
Trump is pro-socialized medicine.
Trump's been a supporter of single-payer health care for quite a long time. And he's open about the fact that he's been a supporter of single-payer health care for quite a long time. And when you bring that to his supporters, they hated Obamacare but are completely okay with single-payer health care under Trump.
Was that true for Romney, too? Because Romney had a Romney Care thing. Did people accept it because it came from Romney?
Well, it was because it was a state level thing. So it was okay to have socialized medicine because it was only in Massachusetts. So Romney Care wasn't really something that you could attack Romney on because of the fact that the whole states' rights thing.
So yeah, it's like Ron Paul's immigration cop-out.
Yeah.
Is that it's a states' rights thing or whatever.
Yeah. Well, then I guess the next story that I wanted to talk about, it makes the efforts of these poor people basically completely pointless. Speaking of Donald Trump, there's an organization called the Muslim Public Affairs Council. And basically they wrote a letter and challenged Donald Trump to a public debate, quote, on the issues that Trump has, quote, raised about Islam and Muslims. Now, this is according to The Hill. I'm actually reading this from Raw Story. But I have a letter here but I have some excerpts from it. It says, ever since you announced your run for presidency of the United States, you've scapegoated the American Muslim community and other minority groups for all your perceived ills in America. The group wrote in the letter, it says, quote, you rely on the promotion of fear and internet lies to fuel the flames of hate and divisiveness across our country. We have news for you. We will no longer be bullied, and we will not be your punching bag. You have no understanding of the world in which you live. That's why you insist on backwards policies such as building walls and segregating communities based on religion as a desperate attempt to create a false sense of strength and security and to preserve your distorted view of what makes America great. The letter was closed by poking the bear, as Ross Story puts it, that someone with Trump's, quote, strength and knowledge in such matters surely wouldn't be afraid of debating a group as lowly as theirs. As of Sunday, Trump's campaign has not responded to the challenge.
Do they respond to challenges?
I've seen challenges responded to. Usually not. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually go to the debate. Like I've seen Tom Woods and Michael Lotfi, like Mike's a friend of mine, challenge Mark Levin to a debate like over and over and over and over again. And he responds by calling them pro-slavery neo-Confederates. But he won't actually debate them. He just, you know, engages in ad hom while he's on the air rather than responding to them directly. And I'm sure that's what'll happen here. It'll become MPAC will basically become a footnote in his speeches, much like CARE is a footnote in the speeches of other politicians, like the one in Oklahoma that, you know, the Islam is a cancer that should be cut out of America, that whole thing. Now, every time he speaks, since CARE attacked him on that statement, now every time he speaks publicly, he invokes the Council of American Islamic Relations and the fact that they challenged him, and basically that he gave them the middle finger to voluminous applause. So, and that's all that, in my opinion, is probably going to come of this, is that it will just become another footnote for one of Trump's speeches, a spot to get a quick round of applause from the crowd.
Okay.
I mean, I love the fact that they did it. You know me. I'm an in-your-face kind of guy. And when I see other Muslims grow a set and decide to stand up in the face of a person that intimidates other people, I'm like, yeah, get out there and kick some, you know. So I'm behind them. I don't, they're very left politically, but if they're willing to stand up in the manner that you and I have, and Hisham and Rami and other people that work for our organization, Muslims for Liberty, if they're willing to stand up in the face of the haters and not be afraid, I'm behind that 100%. More of standing up to the haters and the staters on the other side when we get back on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. Oh yeah! So here we are on our way down the hill in the last half of the second half of the second hour of the Call to Freedom here on LRN.FM. So yeah, we've been chit-chatting here tonight. Our guest didn't show, unfortunately. He's out of country, I know that much. I think he's in Qatar right now. So he probably had some sort of an issue with his internet connection or something, because like I said, I spoke with him at like 9:30 via text message, and then have not been able to get any response from them since then. So we've just kind of winged it from there. We were just talking about this organization, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, has thrown down the gauntlet, so to speak, to Donald Trump, and is saying, we will not be your scapegoat or your punching bag for your campaign. we challenge you to a public debate on the issues that you have brought up. Internet conspiracy theories and things that have been used as quote-unquote facts as a part of his campaign in order to foment populist anger, much in the way Julius Streicher did in Der Stürmer in Germany in the 1930s. Basically, if you want to be straight up and honest about it. So a few of the candidates have a problem with that.
I don't know if this is true or not. This is just my subjective feeling on the matter. But my impression is that Donald Trump sort of realizes that he's a carnival barker and that he's performing a little minstrel show for us, and he's not. He is maybe a real candidate and people are really going to vote for him and all that, but his strategy has been to not resemble a conventional campaign and to instead resemble a circus act. So I wonder if the way to seduce Donald Trump into participating in something like a debate is to sort of hat tip that you know that, right? Like, so instead of inviting him to a debate, say, invite him to a game show, invite all the other candidates too, right? I bet he would be down for something like that. If you could get candidates to begin committing to game shows instead of debates.
Do an episode of Jeopardy.
Right.
And ask the candidates questions like,
yes,
establish their level of knowledge of anything.
Right. I think I would like to see them do Family Feud, or maybe Family Feud should be saved for the general election. But you know, well, maybe you could do it now. You could have like your team of
I guess Family Feud would work better because they're like, you know, they're asking
right now
questions.
We've got 5 Republicans, but we've only got 2 Democrats. So Democrats need to pony up some
If you count Vermin Supreme and the other 2 guys that I can't remember their name and nobody like Jim DeMint and somebody else.
Okay.
If you count all of the candidates that actually are running as Democrats. Oh, wait. What's his name? I know him and I feel so bad that
Adam Kokesh is the man for this job. If Adam Kokesh is serious about running in 2020, he should be challenging all current candidates to a game of Family Feud with him as the host.
Oh, that would be awesome. Put it on RT.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be epic. Well, I mean, it does make more sense than Jeopardy because the questions...
we asked 100 Americans.
Exactly.
What do you think of this?
What do you think? What is your opinion on this? What is your opinion on this?
We asked 100 Americans. What do you call whatever? Pick your question. And then it's a matter of like, are they even in touch with how Americans answer this question? Because this is my favorite thing about Family Feud. I watched an episode last night, and the family brought up water picks 4 times to 4 different questions, like something that appears in a dentist's office, something that you buy but you never use. They said water pick, and I'm like, what? This is not a person. This is a bougie person who's not in touch with beer drinking America.
Yeah.
So you would know that if you made Marco Rubio and Donald Trump on the Republican side, and you made Bernie Sanders and you'd get a better sense of all. This is a thing. This needs to be the way that elections go from here on out.
At the end, we'll see. Yeah, but the Jeopardy thing though gives you the ability to like at the end, whoever has the least amount of money, like that's how you do the nominating now. Is like you're not allowed if you can't at least muster, the top.
Well, maybe you do Jeopardy style when you're down to 3 people. Like keep in mind, all of these games have a set number of players.
Yeah.
And at some point it's going to be 1.
Well, I would want it would be like Jeopardy with 4 though, because then you could have 2 from each party. So because then you might have like 2 against 1. And
maybe Jeopardy should replace the debate. Like maybe you should challenge Donald Trump. This is what you should do. These people that are challenging Donald Trump to a debate, they need to instead challenge him personally to a game of Jeopardy.
And have things that would have to do with like domestic and foreign policy, economics.
Right. Those are your categories.
Yeah.
So you get like a representative from Muslim Public Affairs Council. Is that what this place is called?
Yeah.
And then maybe the third player is, I don't know, Robert Spencer.
Right.
And you have Robert Spencer, Donald Trump, and somebody from this Muslim organization play a game of Jeopardy.
Right. Oh, wow. That would be epic. I mean, for real. I mean, you could have questions like...
how could he not accept that invitation?
What are the five foundations of law?
That would be so many eyeballs. You'd have more people watching that show than a Fox News debate any day. Any candidate that refused a campaign Jeopardy, like, they're
It'd be
fools.
like American Idol.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, if America's gonna become idiocracy and we're gonna end up with, what was his name? Like Mountain Dew, Hecto Macho Camacho or something like that.
Camacho. Yeah. Kombucho?
I thought Mountain Dew was in his name somewhere.
Yeah, Mountain Dew was in his name.
Well, if we're gonna
For
go
those that
into
don't know what we're talking about, go
idiocracy,
check out the documentary Idiocracy.
Yeah, if we're headed to full on idiocracy, then why not? I mean, why the hell not? Why not have game shows, quiz shows as a part of the political process? Why not? I mean, we've elected a governor in the 80s basically because of the fact he was a movie star. So
Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura.
Well, we elected a president, Reagan.
But here's the thing: making it a game show. Oh man, you could do like Win Ben Stein's Money. That'd be kind of a fun game to play with like your financial people. Anyway, if you did it as a game show, you're actually testing the intelligence of the candidate and not the handlers. And this is the problem. All we're seeing in all these debates is a performance conducted by handlers. And I want to know what these particular people do in a tense situation. That's the other thing. Yeah. There's no tension in a debate, and these people need to be tested for their grit. So maybe Double Dare. Maybe we should make them play Double Dare.
Right. I would so love to see all of the candidates with a big bucket of slime on their head.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it would be entertaining for the public. Would definitely tune in because the people who hate specific candidates would watch it just for the ability to see that candidate with like rotten banana smeared on their face or something, or whipped cream pie in the face or dunked in a pool of Jello. Like the Republicans and the Democrats would literally just watch for no other reason than to see the opposite team lose.
Which means voter turnout would be so much better.
Right. Well, because oppositional politics is all that our political process seems to be based upon anymore. I mean, none of it has to do with policy or reason, logic, justice, equity. None of that. Although those are just buzzwords that the candidates like to use. It's all based on opposition politics now.
You know what else I want? I want a Kobayashi Maru test. Did you know what that is?
No.
So this is in Starfleet from Star Trek. If you're going through officer training in Starfleet and you get to the rank of captain, one of the things that you have to do before you're entrusted with a ship is the Kobayashi Maru test. And the deal with it is there's no way to win. No matter what you do in this simulation, you will die. And the test is about how you deal with a crisis situation where there are no positive outcomes. And I would like to lock every candidate into a Oval Office simulator and put them through a Kobayashi Maru style international crisis and see who drops a nuke. Just see who does it in the panic of the moment.
Wow, that's a great idea. All right, well, when we come back, we'll be talking about that and a lot more here on the Call to Freedom on LRN.FM. Okay, we're back here on the final segment of the Call to Freedom here on LRN.FM. It's me, Will Coley, from my secret Liberty bunker here in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, along with my amazing cohort, Davi Barker.
How's it going? The sun has set and I have resubmerged.
So yeah, we've been chit-chatting today about the Todashev case, and then we got into this thing about the MPAC Trump debate, and
we should call it reality politics. That's what this genre of game show should be called, reality politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we already have game show politics, basically. So,
well, then I want rules, and I want scores, and I want Vanna White turning over little numbers and letters and things.
Right. All right. Well, give me just take over for just about 2 minutes, Davi. I got to go check the door.
All right. So for those that didn't hear the previous segment, I was talking about the future of politics. And I think the future of politics is game shows. I think rather than challenging these people to debates, because who really wants to watch debates? They should instead challenge each other to game shows. And your top three, Republican candidates would agree to appear on Jeopardy together. Or your top 5 Republicans and top 5 Democrats would agree to appear on Family Feud together. Or whatever. Like, these shows already exist. They just need to be hosting presidential episodes the way that their networks currently host these debate platforms. And despite people thinking this is maybe, I've had people react to this by saying they think that this is sort of an affront, a dishonor to the stature of the office or whatever. The fact of the matter is, as voters, you would have a better idea of the candidate's actual intelligence and actual position on things if he was asked things quasi at random and with points at stake than if he got to give you these sort of calculated non-answers to questions every time he was asked. And that's what goes on in a debate. They go out on these podiums and they just answer whatever they want. They don't have to answer the question they were asked. They answer the question that they wanted to be asked.
Well, that's
because there's no...
That's the main. That's been the main complaint specifically about Rubio, is that no matter what question is asked, he has a scripted answer that probably isn't even related to the question at all.
This is why we need judges.
Filled with
See,
buzzwords.
a game show has judges, and if you don't answer the question that was asked, it goes burr, burr, and you lose.
I thought
that's it.
I thought that was part of the moderator's job, is to be like, you didn't answer the question, stupid. Try again.
Well, that's why we need questions with right answers, because then we can keep score.
Well, no. If I ask you, what are you, like, just a random question, like, what are you going to do about the crack epidemic? But there, I know there isn't one. Just anyway, random, hypothetical question. What about the crack epidemic? And you start talking to me about how you're going to make America great, and you're going you never mention anything at all that has to do with what are you going to do about the crack epidemic. I think there should be like the moderator's job to go, you didn't answer the question, stupid. Next. And I personally, I think if there's a point where you do that, if you're like, oh, you just philosophize about bullcrap, then you get buzzed, and now you get to leave the stage. Like, it should be an elimination type thing, where if you get asked a direct question and you don't answer the question in any substantive fashion at all, you get the buzzer. It's like the Gong show. You get the gong, and now you get to go sit down and let the grown-ups have a discussion.
There you go.
But we've not had any guests for the last couple of weeks. Everybody was out doing their lovely thing with Valentine's Day last week, and then this
not
week,
me.
Yeah, I know. You have your own holiday, Davi, but. Coming up, guys, I've been hard at work trying to secure some people for us, and I'm really excited about some of the stuff that we've got lined up for the next few weeks, actually. Next week, we have Dr. Yasser Qadhi will be joining us, and he have to be arguably one of the most influential American Islamic scholars in America and in the world. It has to be. I see people from Pakistan, people from Qatar that share his links. And the links are in English. They have Arabic or Urdu subtitles, but the links are in English. And the man is world renowned, and we're going to be talking to him about all kinds of different issues, from the voluntary state under the Prophet ﷺ to the proper role of violence in society. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, some issues that are comfortable and some that aren't so comfortable, because that's our job, is to ask the questions that and discuss the issues that are not something that's comfortable to our community to talk about amongst themselves usually. So, that's part of what we do here. And we're also going to have stand-up comedian Jeremy McClellan. He is a libertarian stand-up comedian. I found out that he is a comedian that is a favorite comedian of Dr. Coley. And when I found that out, I just had to make sure, since we have someone in the libertarian community that he's already a big fan of, that we got those guys on the air together. And, so maybe they could even crack some jokes together. And then after that, the first week of March, we have Imam Muhammad Al-Asi. Now, this guy is something else. He's been committing a protest, a civil disobedience protest for over a decade now. While an imam at a mosque in Washington, D.C., he made statements critical of the Saudi Arabian government. And because this particular mosque had been, basically opened through funds from the Saudi Arabian government, he was immediately fired for making these statements. And since then, he has committed an act of protest by holding Muslim Friday, what they call Jummah services, on the sidewalk, the public sidewalk in front of this particular mosque, as a way of protesting the fact that the government of Saudi Arabia basically used their money as a way to silence him right here in the United States. And we'll have him on as well. And then I've also got a couple of other people that we've got lined up. I've been in contact with Joe Bradford. We're hoping to have him on with David Friedman. Joe Bradford is the first American Muslim to get a doctorate in economics from an Islamic university in Medina. So we will have two great economic minds on. And I also... we're going to have the founder of Muslims for Bernie Sanders on the show, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow, that's like our opposite organization.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the point, like I'm going to have them on, and the entirety of the interview will be, okay, here is Bernie Sanders' position. Can you quantify or qualify that from an Islamic jurisprudential perspective? You support this program. The Sharia says that is a form of oppression. How do you rationalize supporting oppression through your vote? So we'll be covering a lot of political issues that Muslims have a tendency to support today that they really have no business supporting from a religious standpoint. Like the income tax, like the forced taking of charity from their neighbors in order to fund social programs. All of these things are considered completely inappropriate according to Islamic jurisprudence and according to the Prophet ﷺ himself in some cases. And Muslims openly support them in this country, and we're going to have a conversation about that with the founder of Muslims for Bernie Sanders. I guess that's going to be the second week in March. And so we've definitely got some interesting stuff coming up, hopefully, in the future. So, yeah, and
awesome.
I think having Joe Bradford and David Friedman, that's what I'm really looking for. Like, I'm really looking forward to Yasser Qadhi, but the discussion, like, we're literally going to spend 2 hours discussing economics in depth on the air. It's going to be the most boring show to anybody who's not like an info.
Hey, how hard would it be to have this show be a game show? I've never heard of a game show podcast. Like, could we work that out? Could we come up with some rules and some questions for guests?
I don't know. Well, we'll have to talk about that next week's, because that music means that we are out of time for this Sunday. Again, next week we've got Dr. Yasser Qadhi as well as comedian Jeremy McClellan. For the Call to Freedom, I'm Will.